Hello everyone and welcome to another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this battle I'm going to be playing Norsca led by Throgg, the King of Trolls. And guys, we're going to be facing off against the Greenskins who are led by a Night Goblin Warboss. So let's jump right into this game and take a look at the army compositions. In the front line I do have a combination of the Familiar Warriors mixed in with the Marauder Berserkers. So I definitely like this combination quite a bit because the Berserkers are very squishy. They only have, let's see what they're actually, their melee defense is 18 and their armor is quite low. The reason these ones have 33 armor is because of this Skinwolf Werekin who has the Ruinous Flesh, which is an incredibly good buff. So that's actually quite good also to put them with the Berserkers because obviously their biggest weakness is that they only have 18, well, very low armor, pretty low melee defense, but they get missile resist and armor from the Skinwolf Werekin. So that's definitely a nice synergy there. But in the front line, you bring the Familiar Warriors. So these guys are a very heavily armored frontline unit. They have 128 armor here because of the Ruinous Flesh, but I think the base Familiar Warriors actually only have 110, but that's about the same as Black Orcs. So it's very heavily armored for a faction that's kind of known as a lightly armored faction. So these guys get in, they have armor piercing, good armor piercing. So against like Black Orcs, they can do very well and kind of sunder the armor and then allow your Berserkers to actually do more damage. And if you're fighting against like Biggins and Savage Orcs, these guys are going to be too heavily armored for those guys to, effectively take them down. Granted, the Greenskins do have some tools, they have the Rusty Arrows and different things like that can do very well against Familiar, but I really like this combination in the front line. It's quite a bit of fun. So in the middle, I have the Brutes of the Hound, the Regiment of Renown of the Marauder Berserkers, and these guys are one of those regiments that are just so good. I mean, having an unbreakable, extremely high DPS unit is always pretty nice. So aside from that, I do have Throgg, the King of Trolls, and he's very good against the Greenskins. The Greenskins do have some like missile pressure. They have the Rusty Arrows and Goblin firing lines and things like that, but it's not enough just raw firepower to kind of punish Throgg. Like against the Empire or these factions that have really devastating missile lines with like Nets of Amnitok and the Silver Bullets and Hammer of the Witches and things like that, Throgg can go down incredibly quick. But against like these kind of primitive factions like the Greenskins and things like that, he really shines here. He has anti-large, so he can deal with enemy lords. He can probably honestly do extremely well against this Ragnarok Queen, and just a solid pick in my opinion. So that's pretty much it for my front line. I have the kind of a symmetrical front line here. I have the Skinwolf Werekin here and the one here, both providing those buffs to all of my frontline troops. I got some Skinwolves right here, and I think that's pretty much it. It was a very expensive army because the Familiar Warriors, especially the Miststalkers here, which are the Regiment of Renown, are extremely expensive. So and I got some Norscan Ice Wolves. So this, honestly, these Skinwolves trade extremely well with Orc Biggins. They do a ton of damage. They have an anti-large bonus, and they don't have good armor piercing, but Orc Biggins only have like 40 or 50 armor, so these guys really shine in this matchup. And I also like the Norscan Ice Wolves to try and get around the back and, hunt those archers down. So for my opponent, he has some Orc Biggins and Black Orcs, so kind of the traditional old school front line mixed in with some Savage Orcs. And it's a good combination. These Black Orcs, if their armor isn't sundered, and even if it is, they're still going to have 80 armor. And they're going to be able to kind of really beat down those Berserkers. And they have good AP against the Familiar. Granted, the Familiar will give it right back to them a little bit. The Biggins are definitely going to struggle a little bit. Berserkers can outtrade them, and Familiar will also do pretty well against them. So he's definitely going to be relying quite a bit on those Black Orcs in the front line. Some Savage Orc here in the middle. Probably just had like 500 gold left and wanted to get them. But they're going to be anchoring this Arachnot Queen, who is it's going to be a menace for sure. If like he can keep it away from Throgg and just kind of beat him my Familiar Warriors, or maybe go after my Skinwolf Werekin or different things like that. Well, granted, that's not a good engagement for it either. But if he can kind of protect it and go after my Familiar and Infantry and use those Spider Summons really effectively to kind of muck down some of my very powerful units, it could be pretty good. So in the back, he's got a Night Goblin Shaman with the Sneaky Steal in, a few of the buff abilities, and he also does have the Rusty Arrows, and I think that's his only Goblin Missile. I definitely would like to see a couple more because Norsca typically does bring some monstrous units, and missile pressure is definitely one of the best ways to take those guys down. And then on the far side, he does also have some Orc Biggins. So those guys have anti-large and armor piercing, so against like Mammoths and not so much against Skinwolf Werekin. Granted, these ones do have 88 armor, so I guess it's going to be useful there. But in the front line, you can see the Familiar Warriors are going to come in first, and they do a little bit of shock damage. They have a charge bonus of 25 themselves, and I think I feel like the animations they use are going to be pretty similar to a lot of the Lizardmen one. But regardless, they get in there, and you guys will see here in a moment, they do some nice splash damage. You can see some of these Biggins are being sent back to the Shadow Realm from whence they came, and yeah, it does okay. It kills like one or two models, but the Familiar are going to like tank these two groups like very heavily, and then the Berserkers are going to get in there and hopefully be able to shred them up. And because again, they have like that 57, 58 weapon strength, I think right now. Yeah, 57. So yeah, you can see these Biggins are really just getting cut up horribly, and these Familiar Warriors haven't taken any model losses, and they've taken the full brunt of like 2 full groups of infantry. In the center, this is kind of the wild fight. You can see the Brutes of the Hound, some of the Miststalkers here, as well as Throgg are all fighting, but my opponent did use the Itchy Nuisance, so very well played on his part. You can see Throgg is also taking pretty much the entire duration of that fire from those Rusty Arrows in the back, so I immediately had to pull him back, but I actually did not see these Orc Biggins coming, so that was really rough. Well played by my opponent. Sneaking around, using that high ground kind of shrouding there, and he's going to kind of have free range, because I don't really have many troops to defend the back line. And I did send my Skinwolf Werekin through here, so I really needed to shut down the Rusty Arrows, so I sent these guys in here, and you can see the Rusty Arrows are going to take, a pretty substantial beating. It'll probably be routed off, and you can also see my my Norscan Ice Wolves are going to be coming in and also sandwiching these guys. So definitely some good times. But my opponent's coming in. You can see these Berserkers, even though Orc Biggins aren't necessarily meant against Berserkers, like these, they're incredibly squishy, and like the shock damage and charge bonus here is just gonna just absolutely wreck these guys. And also my my Premier Warriors here are large and armored, so the Orc Biggins are gonna do a really good job at kind of chipping those guys down. So this pocket of my side is definitely in some bad shape. Granted, I did kind of push back those Biggins, and did get into the chicken coop a little bit in the back line with some of those skin wolves and other things. So here in the middle, you can see the Ragnarok Queen is taking a lot of damage from my Skinwolf Werekin, because they do have anti-large and armor piercing, and they're doing really well. And also the Premier Warriors are sundering its armor down to 120, which doesn't seem that great, but still, it all counts. So here the Goblin Big Boss is also getting beaten down. The Skinwolf Werekin are just such an incredibly good unit, probably one of the best units on the Norsca roster. Did get nerfed with the most recent hotfix, but it's still like an incredibly competitive pick in my opinion. Over here on the far side, you can see Big Daddy Throgg is having to do a little bit of a retreat. He's gotten really low. He does have that regeneration, but you can see he's smashing some goblins, and that was actually like a 1-for-4. He literally hit one goblin and just smashed like 4 of his guys, which is pretty funny. Some good troll logic right there. But you can actually see the Night Goblin Warboss is in a little bit of a pursuit of Throgg. Throgg's having to run away, but right now I'm just kind of using him with the Skinwolf Werekin, and oh man, he just smashed that Goblin Big Boss, just absolutely crushed him. So now Throgg's running around with this kind of this wolf pack right here, and they're just going around and cleaning up the scraps on the periphery of the fight. So by doing that, I'm getting value out of Throgg. He's not taking damage, and things are good. So I'm taking out all of his mobile units, because these are all things he could use to kind of snipe out Throgg, and we're a little bit isolated. So this Night Goblin Big Boss is definitely, I think it's just a regular one. Yeah, so this Goblin Big Boss right here is in a little bit of trouble. You can see these wolves are probably going to catch him, and yeah, once he actually gets bit and frostbitten, it's going to be pretty tough for him to get away. So Throgg's waddling after him, just trying to kind of find a home, but this Night Goblin Warboss here is still in pretty good shape. At about, well, their HP is actually pretty equivocal, but it looks like he's hunting Throgg pretty good. It looks like the Ragnarok Queen was force pathing, but I do pull out my Skin Wolves, my Norsca and Frost Wolves in here to intercept this Night Goblin Warboss. And also, now that Throgg has some support, this is going to be so incredibly bad for this Night Goblin Warboss, because he's getting hit by Skin Wolves, and Throgg hits so darn hard. You can see one of those hits does like, what is it? I guess his max weapon damage, like about 500 HP to this guy. Looks like I missed that attack there, but he's not going to last long. He does pop the wall, which is going to help all these nearby troops, maybe support him a little bit. He's at about 1200 HP, and it looks like Throgg actually is doing some karate kicks in there, some good stuff going on. On the far side, the Ragnarok Queen has been routed off, so the Skinwolf Werekin and those other guys were able to do some work, but he does come in with his Night Goblin Shaman, I think. Yeah, he has a Night Goblin Shaman in there, and some decent infantry with these Orc Biggins, so I had to pull back. I didn't want to risk Throgg going down, because he's kind of, it's a close battle. The balance of power just shifted in my favor when I finished off that Ragnarok Queen, but nonetheless, the battle's still pretty pitched. My opponent has won the side. His Black Orcs have won the day. You can see my Premier Warriors and these Berserkers are routing off here. And, the only thing I really have on him is the Skinwolf Werekin. Aside, with infantry and everything else, it's pretty darn even. In the back, you can see some of these Orc Biggins get a nice little rear charge on my Premier Warriors who are shaken. They're going to be taking that armor piercing and anti-large damage. And let's see where Big Daddy Throgg is. So yes, Throgg is over here. He's doing a little bit of a retreat, but, I figured I was going to get caught anyway, so Throgg's going to kind of just start smashing on these guys. And, oh, he actually, like, punted that Goblin Big Boss right off his mouth. That was pretty great. Throgg has some of the best kill animations this game, man. It's pretty cool. So this Night Goblin Warboss is incredibly low, so looks like Big Daddy Throgg's just gonna club him too. So that Night Goblin Warboss, just his poor little armored squig is gonna be scurrying away there. But man, Throgg just like one-shotting. Well, I mean, he didn't actually one-shot them, but pretty much all these goblins came in like one by one and just got like clubbed by his giant beat stick, which was pretty cool. So well played to my opponent. It was a super fun game, and Throgg, he's a force to be reckoned with. Like, and even when he's low, like, he has a pretty big HP pool. So when he looks that low, he still has like 2,000 HP, right? And he's going to be regenerating, and he's pretty tough to kill. But I really like the synergy with kind of these three units. So the Skinwolf Werekin, the Premier Warrior, and the Berserker. So the weakness of the Berserkers is obviously their missile resist, number one, so they can get peppered down, but my opponent didn't really punish me for that, but they can. So having that Ruinous Flesh from the Skinwolf Werekin, giving the armor and missile resist is really powerful on those guys. Not to mention Skinwolf Werekin are just extremely good themselves. But I like the armor sundering here. Granted, my opponent's army also did very well. Like his Black Orc line right here, these ones kind of got punished a little bit. Man, they only got 3 kills, but the other ones did pretty well. You can see my opponent did win some of the fights on the periphery, but where the tide of the battle really changed was in the center. The Ragnarok Queen and some of his other high-value units just didn't trade in a cost-effective sense with my Skinwolf Werekin and Throgg, all of whom have anti-large and armor piercing. So it's definitely a bit of a risky pick there. My opponent did have some nice cav play with the Orc Biggins coming up and around the flank and getting some rear charges, and that's partially why he was able to win those battles on the flanks. But very well played to my opponent. We'll just call him Paint for short because it's a very long name. Look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and hey, hopefully you guys enjoyed that Throgg showdown. Have an excellent night and take care.